in and we can rejoin the conversation. We are 3 property angels, 2 on your screens right now, but usually 3 property angels. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We're going to be hearing from Daryn from Propods. He's a local guy from Portsmouth, and we love local people sharing their stories more than any other, so we're really excited this morning. But who are we? Sam, can you introduce yourself please first?
Yep, sure. Sam Beddoe. I've got a couple of property companies. I've got a service accommodation business, and my main property company is Revive Holdings. That's a property development company. So I've got a couple of deals going through at the moment. I've got experience in a variety of property models, be that buy-to-let, HMOs, title splits, auctions, flips, service accommodation, commercial conversions, working with joint venture partners, working with private investors, working with SaaS pensions. So a bit of a myriad of experience there, and I'm settling on development is my main model. Yeah, so Karen, how about you? Over to you.
Good morning, everyone, and apologies for the jumpy start. For some reason, I was booted out of the Zoom, but I'm back now. Anyway, I'm the one that used to be an accountant. I then moved into project and program management and business consultancy in big blue chip industry. So I dealt with programs in trouble, programs with no direction, setting policy and strategy and that type of thing. I exited that world in May 2015, and taking those solid foundations with me, began building a property business from solid foundations from the ground up. Now I help other property professionals craft strategic plans so they can start their business in the same South way. So that's really me these days.
Thanks, Karen. I'm just trying to start a watch party, but obviously our tech abilities have gone completely off this morning. My name's Sarah Smith. For those of you that don't know me, I started in property in 2004 as very much an accidental landlord. Bought my first property, lived in it, and when I wanted to move house 2 years later, my broker said, you can keep this property and rent it out and also buy the next one. And I did that 4 times. Before realizing, oh, property might be something interesting, keep my eye on that. Meanwhile, I was training as a solicitor in London, and did that for, qualified and did that for 8 years. But I was always doing property in the background, and when my property income took over my income from my job, I went full-time property, which was around 2016. So I focused on HMOs rather like Daryn from around 2012 until recently, to be honest. But I'm very much focusing now on buy, refurb, refinance, sticking to very much vanilla buy-to-lets. Also host Partners in Property with these 2 lovely ladies, which is a monthly networking meeting, and have done lots of different property strategies in the past, including rent-to-rent, title split, flips, auction, purchase, obviously a standard buy-to-lets, and as I said, HMOs. So I've done lots of bits and pieces in the past, and that's me. So welcome, Daryn. How are you this morning?
Morning, ladies. I'm very well, thanks. Very well, lovely and sunny and bright and blue sky today. So,
and I understand your last interview was with Channel 5, so no pressure.
No pressure, no pressure, no cameras today. So yes, yes.
So just to kick us off, what first sparked your interest in property, or where did your background in property start?
So my late father was a builder of 40 years. So I think from the young age of probably, I don't know, 6 or 7, I was running around building sites. And just from there really, and as I got older, it sort of just took my interest, and I bought my first property on my 18th birthday. Wow.
Do you mind me asking what year that was?
Cool, blimey, hang on. So that would be 1996.
Wow.
1996. So, and those were the days that you would walk around all the estate agents, no internet. That was proper property sourcing, that was. So that was dumping the car and trolling the streets and looking for properties. And even at the age of 17, I was taking out estate agents for coffees and chats, and so probably created networking before it even existed, to be honest. But yeah, so first house, 18th birthday, I remember driving down to solicitors and signing the paperwork with my £1,000 deposit.
Wow. And were they the days of Mortgage Express?
No, because funny enough, that was my first house that I bought for myself, and then that's how it all started. So I did that up within 6 months, and then sold it and bought another one, and stayed in that for 6 months. And then at the time, buy-to-let mortgages were pretty non-existent, to be honest. So you sort of had to go with the market and accumulate some sort of, you know, money from just doing up and selling. And then I think about 2000, something like that, the buy-to-let market really started to take off. But I remember talking to my building society manager at the time, and she was like, "No, the banks and building societies will never want to, you know, remortgage properties for people to let out, you know." And here we are now, 2020, and it's the norm.
Yeah,
it's so the norm, and it's bizarre how 20 years has changed the whole industry.
Yeah, so you started off flipping the properties, buying them, doing up, selling them,
Yeah.
and then you gradually changed your strategy over time to retain them.
Yeah, gradually changed my strategy, and when I could then obviously start buying and holding and remortgaging, that's where it started. I probably got very keen on it. So between 2000 and 2007, I was probably doing more buying and selling and renovating. And the key moment for me was I had the estate agency started in 2005, and we managed in 2007 to get in with an asset management company in regards to repos. And we were seeing the demise of the market before it actually happened. I mean, we were having people posting keys for our letterboxes of a weekend. And talking to surveyors and saying there's a recession on the way, and people going, "No, I don't know what you're talking about." And in 2008, we did 80 repos.
Wow.
As one office. And it was then that I decided that it was the right time for me and my late father to start going to auction and buying some properties. And that's what we did, and we managed to have a deal with our bank, and they then obviously remortgaged them for us. And between 2008 and 2011, I think we bought something like 12 properties and held them. And then obviously from then, obviously the market grew in bits and bobs, and it allowed us to do it. I took 5 years off when my dad was poorly and didn't do a lot. And then sadly, when he passed away 5 years ago, it was the time to. It was like a light bulb moment. It was like my life was changing. I realised what was important, what wasn't important, but I actually embraced it and sort of used it as a stepping stone to actually start enjoying doing it, rather than it. I don't class it as a job. When people say to me, "What do you do?" I don't really know what I do. So yeah, I don't really know. You know, I can't write it on an application form. I'm probably unemployable. So yeah. So I enjoy it. I embrace it. If I get up in the morning and I want to be at the desk at 8 o'clock in the morning, so be it. If I get up in the morning and I want to spend a bit of time with the kids, if they're here, then I'll start work at 10 o'clock in the morning. For me, it's all about work-life balance. Yeah,
completely. And it sounds like you've got a very strong reason why, you know, the reasons why you're doing it and your priorities and what you're aiming for.
Yeah, you know, you have to, sometimes you do forget about it, and some days, you know, some days become stressful, and you sort of leave home at 8 o'clock in the morning, don't get home until 7 o'clock at night. But then there's other days where I'm floating around the house and just tinkering around, and yeah, you know, there's no 2 days the same, is there, in property? I've always said that.
No. I always think it's a roller coaster. It's you know, some days are amazing, you're on a high and you're like, wow, I love this property game, and other days, you know, things just don't go right and you wonder what the hell you're doing, not just having a normal job.
Yeah, but do you know what though? I think normal job's boring, Sarah.
I agree.
So I was out with friends last night talking about doing this interview today, and I think someone you know, Sarah, Chris Green.
Yeah.
And he's just like, "Daryn, your CV would just look like an absolute mess." He said, "Because I haven't worked for someone since 23."
Yeah.
So, you know, I've worked for myself longer than actually, you know, when I was at school and actually working 6 years of my life. So yeah, it's bizarre. So
we're all unemployable, aren't we now? Unemployable.
I think we are. I think we are, because we're all set in our ways a little bit, and but I never had a career path. Admire you guys. You all had a career path and stuff. For me, it was like I got out of the car industry at 23, and I remember I left home one day and drove up the road. The garage was literally 2 miles from my house, and between the 2 miles, I decided I was going to have a job in. And that was it. And literally, I handed my job in, spent 6 months doing a little bit here and there, and I decided that I could do estate agency better than actually the people I've been buying off for the last 6 years. And that's how I sort of accidentally fell into owning an estate agent.
So at what point did you buy the estate agency? How old were you when you started that?
I was 24. So I was 24. At 24, I was earning £35,000 a year, which back then was good money for a 24-year-old.
Yeah.
And I set up my own estate agency, struggling to earn £900 a month. And at the time, it was just purely estate agency, not lettings. And then I decided, and then we got into lettings around about 2006. And doing the repossessions also helped, because obviously there was a lot of landlords who'd never done lettings before, buying these repossessed properties and saying to me, Darren, look, I've not done it. You're quite new in it. Let's crack on, and we'll learn by our mistakes as we go. And then I decided in 2015, when my dad passed away, that we were going to stop sales, because I sort of fell out of love with it, to be honest with you. I love the lettings. I love how quick it is.
Yeah, much quicker.
I love that no one can interfere with a sale. Everyone interferes with a sale. No one can really interfere with a let. No disrespect, Sarah. You've got surveyors, solicitors, buyers, solicitors, surveyors, all that lot. With a let, it's like, right, okay, are you going to pass referencing? Great, we can move you in 10 days. And I love the bounce of how quick it is.
Yeah.
So I made that decision to literally just purely become a sole letting agent, and actually it helped us grow our business, because a lot of our landlords were like, we really like the way you just concentrate on one sector of the market.
Yeah.
And we manage over, I think we've got about 220 now.
Wow.
So we're not the biggest, but for an independent business as ourselves, that's good for us. And 85% of our business is pure recommendation. So yeah, that's what I love about that.
And do you work in that business, or are you you keep an eye on it, but you don't actually work in it?
Well, I would say for the last 4 years, I've probably not really worked in it. I've kept an eye on it, but due to COVID, it made me come back into doing some work. So since March, I think I've done more work since March than what I've probably done in the 4 years prior. And I've had to learn from the guys in the office how the systems work again, which is bizarre, because obviously it's my own company. But I give our guys a free rein in the office. I say to them, I've got an office manager there. I've got a couple of guys there, and I just basically say to them, look, treat it as it's your business, and I will back you 100%. And if there's a problem, we'll solve the problem. I'm not one of these that tries to find a solution before a problem's actually been caused. But it's been nice going back in. It's been nice talking to a lot of the landlords who I haven't spoken to for probably 2-3 years. They've enjoyed me being back. And I think COVID's obviously changed the way people feel as well and think. And we bought a lot of software into the business about 2 years ago, and actually it's sort of come to fruition, because literally the day we went into lockdown, we literally picked up our computers, put them at home, turned it on, and everything was like it was in the office.
Yeah.
And I know some companies really struggled with that for the first couple of weeks. But for us, yeah, literally the next day, people wouldn't know any different, that whether we were working from home or working in the office. So yeah, so it's been interesting coming back into, but I haven't wore a suit, which I know was a question you and I spoke about the other day, Sarah. I haven't worn a suit for ages. I wasn't going to wear a suit every day coming into lockdown. So yeah, no, it's been good. It's been good.
And so the estate agency is one business, but what you're probably known for is Propods. How did that start?
So Propods all started from a couple of angles, really. So I had an investor who is now my business partner, investor at the time said to me, look, I'm thinking about getting into HMOs, and you know, we all know that word really sort of groups into a massive conversation about, you know, the style and quality and the quantity of HMO, the demographics of it, and you know, the types of tenants that can bring with it. And at first I'd always been anti-student properties. Not that I haven't got a problem with students, but it was never our model as a lettings business. So that was that. And then I had a client ring me up who said, Daryn, I've got someone working for us who is on a 4-month work placement and has got hotel fever. Have you got a room for him? But it has to have an ensuite. And I went out there, and in Portsmouth, I just couldn't find it at the time. And then I come home and said to my wife, you know, it's bizarre. I've got this investor telling me he wants to get into HMOs, and I'm saying no. And I've got a client who wants me to find him a room with an ensuite, and it doesn't exist. And basically from there on, it was like a year of okay, what would a top end HMO for professionals look like? And yeah, we put a lot of time and effort into, I'm not one for strategies normally, but we put a lot of time and effort and, you know, research into how did this look. And it was something that's obviously very big in London. And that's obviously where the co-living came from. You know, that word co-living to me didn't really exist until London jumped on it and started creating, you know, 80, 90, 100 rooms in a purpose-built block. And we just looked at how we could scale that down slightly into Portsmouth. Had a chat with a lot of people. A lot of people said to me, not quite sure the market's going to be there, not quite sure, you know, we always said that we would create a niche within a niche. And, you know, when we said that this is the sort of money we're looking for our rooms, people felt that Portsmouth wouldn't pay it. And I was convinced that it wasn't just people living in Portsmouth, it was people coming to Portsmouth for a new job. And here we are. We're I've just looked at my LinkedIn this morning and someone's congratulated me for 3 years of Propods, but I think that's 3 years of me starting Propods, but not actually becoming active. But here we are, 2 years of hard graft, and between myself and my business partner and another investor, we're into 50 rooms, and we've got another 40 rooms currently at planning stage or development stage or purchasing stage. And the target is 150 rooms, and I'd like to be there by 2023. That's our target, and our biggest aim is to become Portsmouth's leading co-living provider.
Awesome. Have you got any, I don't know if you can show us any of your rooms, because I know they are very, very high spec. I don't know if you know how to share your screen or anything like that. Don't worry if it's...
No, you're pushing me here now, Sarah. You could log onto the website and show people. You're more than welcome. Yeah, our rooms are really high spec. I mean, to give you some idea, we normally spend the same value on the refurb as what we do on the property, which people say is absolute madness. It's not unusual for us to spend between 2 and 250 grand on a refurb. Yeah.
For the whole building.
For the whole building, it's insane. But we are future proofing. We are we source all our furniture direct. Our beds are made for us. We soundproof, which is not, a lot of people don't soundproof. We spend a lot of money on soundproofing because I think that's just not about today. That's about 5-10 years down the line. We try and just literally future proof everything. So our maintenance between year 1 and 5 is very, very minimal. So what we're spending now, we are recuperating over that first 5 year period. And during lockdown, we were at 90, I think like 93% occupancy.
Wow.
Yeah. And after lockdown, we had a few move outs. I'll say a few. I think we had about 7 move outs because their jobs could now be done from home and blah, blah, blah. So they went back to their family home or their town. And as soon as lockdown finished, we rented 12 rooms in 23 days.
Well done.
Yeah, it was pretty full on. And to date with 50 rooms, sorry, I say 50 rooms, I think it's 48 rooms. We have got 2 empty, and I reserved one yesterday. So, yeah, we're literally running on 95% occupancy, which is phenomenal.
That's amazing, and obviously testament to the quality of your rooms and the fact that it sounds like in Portsmouth you're still top of the game in terms of people are looking for an amazing room. Yours are the first ones they'd come to if they're available.
Yeah, so I think it's like anything, isn't it? You set the benchmark and people try to play catch up with you. You know, we've got some exciting things coming, which would have been this year, but probably next year now. So for me now, it's all about, we call our tenants Propodians. So it's how we look after our Propodians. We're looking at some different types of branding. We're looking at what makes their life easier. We're looking at how they commute around the town, how they commute to work. So we're just looking at those angles as well, how we can add value to the business without actually having to change the property. And you know, it's all about longevity and what makes them stay there longer in our property.
Yeah.
I'm not embarrassed to say we are, as far as I'm aware, we are the dearest in Portsmouth, and I'm proud to say we're the dearest in Portsmouth because there is a benchmark for everything at the end of the day. It's no different whether you have a studio flat, a one-bed flat, a two-bed flat. They vary so different in price. And we've taken the same attitude with our Propods. I've no concerns about being one of the dearest, if the dearest, in Portsmouth, because you get what you pay for at the end of the day.
What is your room prices? What do they range to and from?
So they range from 595 all the way up to 850.
Wow.
Yeah, our average room rate I think is around about 690.
Yeah.
And the majority of our rooms are between 650 and 750.
And Karen, what's your most expensive room in Portsmouth? Oh, you've got your mute on.
Sorry. So my most expensive room in Portsmouth is 520.
So you've got competition there, you two.
But you know what though, there is I've always said there's a market for shared living, whether you're £400 a room, £500 a room, £600 a room, £700 a room. You know, without those rooms, you don't have a market as such, and that's what and it helps me being at the top end of the market. It helps me obviously differentiate between that and someone who may not want an ensuite, who can't afford an ensuite. You know, there should be, they've always said it, there should be property for everyone's budget.
Yeah. Because
if there isn't, then we've got a big problem in the world, or in the country. So yeah. So yeah. So.
And there's a price for everything. You know, people. You know, there is a bit of a, definitely in Southampton anyway, a bit of an oversupply of HMO rooms, but it's just a case of price. Every room will be taken at the right price, and people may not want to accept that price, but.
So we've been given the opportunity, funny enough, to actually do a Propod in Southampton, which is a bit out of our area for the minute, but I'm keen to look at it. And it's actually an old HMO because, as you know, getting a new HMO in Southampton is impossible. So we're looking at doing that. I've started in between lockdown. Actually, we've actually had a couple of investors come to us and say, actually, we really like what you're doing, and we'd like to be part of Propods. We don't want to have loads of investors because once you have that, you lose the USP and you also lose control of what's going on. And for me, every Propod should really be the sort of same. It's like a brand. It's like when you walk into a travel lodge. It could be Land's End to John O'Groats. You walk into that travel lodge and it's exactly the same.
Yeah.
And bar the buildings and the shape of the buildings, a Propod should be like that. And that's how we've sort of taken that branding idea.
And did you say that most of your Propods are commercial or ex-commercial buildings that you then convert? So
we started off with houses, and then it dawned on me that actually the layouts of houses was becoming harder to create en suites in every room. So we then started looking at commercial. It works better commercially. It works better financially. I think it works better as a model. And less concerns from residents in high streets, which is quite interesting. Yeah. Parking doesn't become so much of an issue. I mean, it's interesting that probably half our Propolians don't drive. Yeah. So there's a myth about, where's everyone going to park their cars, etc., etc. You know, we do a lot of doctors and nurses at QA Hospital, and obviously parking at QA is horrendous anyway. So they get on the bus. So bus stops, high streets, you know, service, you know, coffees, you know, it's great. I've always said to a lot of our Propods, you can live in our room and go and grab a coffee, jump on the bus, pre-COVID. You know, and all our buses have Wi-Fi's in Portsmouth as well. So there's nothing stopping them from doing that. And we encourage it in a way.
Yeah. So of everything we've talked about, what would you say was your greatest success to date?
Surviving. No. I think the agency, you know, setting that up from scratch and not really, you know, not really being in that industry before, you know, when I was 24, you know, it's quite a young age to set up a business. I pride myself on that we're self-funded as a business. So on the take the Propod side out of it, but on the letting side, you know, we're self-funded, you know, no debt, no nothing. You know, if lockdown had created, you know, a year's worth of lockdown, we would have survived as a business because we've planned, you know, we've saved for a rainy day. But I think Propods is going to be the success, if I'm honest. You know, we're looking to grow it. I've got aspirations of it being 500, 600, 700 rooms regional. Yeah. You know, I can see us having some sort of hub where it works from a centralized hub. You know, and there's some things in the background that we're growing and trying to do. You know, looking to have an app, a Propod app where they can control everything that they want. We've brought some real good technology into the houses. So yeah, so I think Propods has got my mojo, so to speak. It's made me go away from the standard rental market and actually go, okay, how can we improve what was a real diversified market and be the top of our game? And we know that there's other people in other regions doing exactly the same, but it's how we keep ahead of the game and obviously bring in the ideas.
Yeah, 100%. Have you heard of Higgy House?
Of who? That's no then.
Higgy House in Bristol.
No, you're going to have to send me a link on that one.
Yeah, check them out. But yeah, there's some big co-living people, and it's very new, isn't it? So we're only now seeing what people are capable of doing in that space.
Yeah, you know, and I think it's what you make of it. I mean, to give you some idea, not putting names of companies, etc., but when we first started this, we struggled with the refinance because they thought the professional market wasn't as strong as the student market. I mean, who would ever have thought that now? But yeah, you know, it's funny. And the amount of debates I was having about, no, this is stronger than the student market. You know, these are professionals. The wear and tear will be less. You know, they won't party as much. They're out to work 9 till 5. The bills will be less. And in the end, for a very long time, I was getting fed up with it. And then, Sarah, I put my suit on and I went to London. And I literally started talking to banks. And now we have hopefully a long-term relationship with a bank who will be our Propod exit strategy on our refinance. And they love it. They absolutely love it. And I think that's the key, isn't it? When you have a goal and a dream, you shouldn't let anything stand in your way. If you really want to go and get it, you know, you have to put yourself out there and, you know, and don't take no for an answer. And yeah. I think that's something I've always done. I've never been afraid to go and knock on someone's door and say, this is who I am, this is what we do. And if someone says no, then I'll go and knock on the next person's door. Because if you believe in something, then it's about making sure someone else believes in what you believe in.
Yeah, and it sounds a bit like that Go for No. I don't know if you've read the book Go for No or heard about it. You know, you should aim for 100 no's, because if you get 100 no's, inevitably you get 5 yeses or 3 yeses or 2 yeses.
Well, my business partner, who's quite reads a lot of books, you know, listens to a lot of podcasts, he always says you should aim higher than where you want to be.
Yeah. Because
if you aim in the middle and you get to the middle, you've not really achieved it. So aim high, and then if you get somewhere between the middle and where you want to be, you've pretty much achieved your goal. But yeah, I'm not someone who takes no for an answer. I will carry on and go around the roundabout until I can come off at the right junction, really. So yeah.
Okay, and we always like to ask people about the biggest successes, but also about things that may have gone wrong or a project that's not gone quite as to plan, because people can always learn those from those experiences.
I spoke to you the other day and I said, at touch wood, I've never had something go wrong. However, I had the most bizarre experience ever. I bought a house once that wasn't owned by the person I bought it off. Now, technically, Sarah, that should never happen as a solicitor, and you know that.
Exactly.
But let's just say that did happen. And I bought this property with my father, and the guy owned it, but got someone to impersonate his ex-wife to sign the paperwork who knew nothing about that he was selling the house. And it took me 23 months later, solicitors, barristers, to actually win the case. But I did manage to sell the house and make a profit. So I'm not...
You still won.
Every cloud silver lining. But I tell you what, though, I learned a massive, a massive amount of law.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah, I mean, funny enough, I was doing some clearing out in my office, and I found the 4 ring binders of the actual case as such. I know, and when you look at it, it's just insane. And our legal bill was something like £47,000 in the end.
Wow.
Yeah, and
but you still made money, even considering the 47,000.
Well, luckily, again, not naming names, because the seller's solicitor, or who was the seller's solicitor, buggered up, it was a claim against their insurance. But the whole claim in total, with the legals and compensating the ex-wife, etc., was somewhere in the region of £125,000.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if anyone ever buys a house and turns out that the person who's buying or doesn't own it, I'm your person to come to, because I can tell you ins and outs the law on that. So yes, so that's one of my very few mistakes.
Well, that's not really your mistake, I'd say.
So because I've always bought with my gut feeling.
Yeah, me too.
You know, I always had my dad and I. Well, my dad always used to say, Darren, if you can't drive more than 40 minutes and see the house, you shouldn't buy it.
Agree.
And I know there's a lot of people out there who bought properties up north because it looks better, and you know, but I've always had that philosophy. If you can't go and physically see it within 40-45 minutes, I don't think it's the right property for you in your portfolio. Everyone's got different, you know, views on that, but it's always how be in good stead. I always try and do a deal with the buyer direct. So even if it's via an agent, I always want to meet the owner, because we can't get to that owner's aspirations. It's always good to explain why you can't get to it. You know, an agent's never going to explain that better than you can, and they don't have the passion as what I would have, because to me, there's 2 ways of doing a deal. The first deal is you're buying it, and your second deal is you're selling it, and that's where you make your profit. It's like a double profit. So yeah, touch wood, I'm touching my MDF desk, it's so far so good. But who knows? You know, there's bound to be a bump in the road with Propods, and we might not get planning for something, or etc. But it's always having that exit strategy. I always look at where is my exit strategy if I cannot do what I want to do with it.
Yeah, you've got to have different A, B, and C exit plans, haven't
Yes.
you? Cover all bases. Yeah.
Yes.
I think something you said to me as well. You said you buy with your gut, which I definitely do, and you buy things that you would live in yourself, which I also do, and I also believe in investing near to where you live. So yeah, a lot of what you said resonated with me in terms of the gut buying.
Yeah, you know, I've always done that. You know, since the age of 18, I've always done that. Whether it be our own personal house that we own, or a rental property, you know, you've got to feel comfortable with what you're buying. You know, I buy a lot of my stuff with cash, so and I have to make quick decisions. You know, I think that's something else. I think a lot of people try and I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but a lot of people try and go away and work out spreadsheets and is it going to work, and what happens if it doesn't? It's not hitting my potential, you know, profit margin, etc. I've never done any of that. I've always looked at it. Okay, what do I think it's going to cost me to do? I've got a 20-minute snapshot here of making an offer, making an impression, and that's how I've always dealt with. I've always done it like that, and probably a lot of the education programs will probably say that's completely wrong and blah blah blah. But it's always held me in good stead.
That's exactly how I do it. It's always, I look at it as a whole, and obviously you bear in mind, you know, what's this going to achieve rental wise and things like that, but you are just looking at the bigger picture and your knowledge of the area and just making a decision based on that.
I think a good bit of advice that someone once gave me was, if you're buying a house, go and knock on the neighbour's door. Yeah, if you're buying a flat, go and knock on the flat above and the flat below. Yeah, and we do the same with the commercial. You know, we look at the commercial, we go and talk to the shop owners next door. You know, and it's bizarre because actually I've done that and I've actually bought the building next door. Yeah. So just because there's a shop there doesn't necessarily mean the guy doesn't own the shop or the lady doesn't own the business or the building or whatever. But I think it's all about how you come across. You know, and as soon as we start work with anything, here's my number. If you have a problem, come and talk to me. Don't build it up. Don't create a problem that doesn't exist. We're here to be with you. We're long-term holders of this property, and you know, I might not be personally living there, but I am still your neighbour. So yeah, that's always worked well for us. Yeah,
communication and relationships.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah. We spoke briefly before we came on air, as it were. We spoke about the high street. And how you did an interview some years ago about the demise of the high street, and you know, here we are again. What are your thoughts on the future of the high street?
So I'm a lover of the high street. I think, you know, I remember as a kid walking down with my mum on a Saturday morning, getting, you know, at the butchers and the bakers and the candlestick makers and all that lot. I'm a lover of the high street. I think the high street's changing. I think the rates have killed the high street. There's no doubt about it. I did an interview, I think like 2008, I was saying, to Channel 5, and it was all about how rates are killing the high street. And here we are 12 years later, and technically it is rates that are still killing the high street. And, you know, we had a problem with the high street before COVID. There's no doubt about it. You know, I think high streets return to service areas, the essentials. You know, we say to all our Propods, this high street is an essential area. If you want to go to a Boots or a chemist, or, you know, we always look at, has it got a Costa? Because it's a good demographic if it's got a Costa in the high street. We piggyback off the back of what the big brands do in terms of their research before they open up a shop. But a high street's never going to be something that you go down there on a Saturday afternoon for a day out. It's never going to be that. It's always going to be, can I pop in, get what I need, and then I'll have to go out of town at a later date if I want to go and buy some clothes or do it online, or etc., etc. So I think there is a need for the high street still. I've always said it. I think we'll see pedestrianised areas disappear. I think we need to put roads back through high streets and hours free parking. I think that's always been a killer of the high street. I live in Waterlooville, near Waterlooville, and the high streets died because they pedestrianised it, and it's got a roundabout at the top end, you know. And I keep saying to our councillors, take the road out. Yeah, but we spent £1 million on it. Yeah, but take it out. You spent the wrong £1 million. You know, put the road back in. Businesses will come back. People can stop and park their car. They can do half an hour, hours free shopping. That's what high streets need. And I'm an advocate of the high street, and I don't say I refuse, because if we are in a main high street, I will keep a shop front. But what we have done is a clever plan. We've reduced the shop. We've made it 37 to 40 square metres, so we've protected our investment should the high street go, so we can convert it, hopefully under permitted development, into a flat. But what is very interesting is that we've got 2 projects on the go at the moment, and we rented both the shops during lockdown.
Wow.
Because we got them under the rateable value to allow them to have small business rate relief. And I believe if you can have a shop that's between £100 and £150 a week as rent, it opens up a massive market. And we've got 2 new businesses moving into these shops. And what a great advert for us, you know, to give someone the opportunity. We'll give them 2 months rent free to allow them to do their own kit out. We'll support them if we need to. Happy to help them to apply for their small business rate relief if they're struggling to do it. You know, and I say to all our tenants, you know, I've been in business for 20 years, as good as, so talk to me if you need anything. Don't feel a stranger, and don't let a concern worry you and lose sleep overnight. Just pick up the phone and talk to us, because a problem shared is a problem half, isn't it? So
100%. So what would you say is your secret to success in property investing?
Not giving up.
Yeah.
Not giving up. Follow the dream. You know, I've had kicks along the way. You know, I've had properties that I think, my God, this is a cracking deal, got to exchange, and the owners changed their mind. I think it's all about key is communication, having, believing in what you do. Yeah, I think that's a massive one. Believe in what you do. I'm quite a confident person. So believe in what you do. If you don't think it's going the right way, address it, deal with it, don't ignore it, and enjoy it. Because if you don't enjoy it, what's the point of doing it?
Yeah.
Like you just said earlier, Sarah, there's times we think, but you've got to enjoy it. I'm always on site with the guys. I think that's a good one as well. Key to successes. I have no qualms in helping the guys out move 2 ton of sand or whatever if I'm on site. I'm not one of these that just walks around and go, yeah, that's wrong, and jump in the car and drive off. If something needs doing, I'm more than happy. It's very unusual for me not to be in a pair of work boots and a scruffy pair of jeans, and I'm not someone to show success. I drive my truck, and I think that's key as well. I think that makes a huge difference when you're talking to agents as well, that they know you're on the ground and you're actually physically doing it. I think that's key.
I've had the opposite experience because I also drive various sheds around. And I've driven up in my shed before, and they've clearly thought, well, why are you looking at this property? You clearly can't afford it. So that works both ways, I think.
I know we're running out of time, but a very quick story. When I was 19 and I worked at Saab, the automotive company, there was an old boy that used to walk past the garage every day, and he looked like he didn't have any money, bless him. And one day I was outside having a coffee, sat on one of the car bonnets, just leaning against it. And he said, oh, that car there, he said, I'll be down on Friday to buy it. And no one believed him. And on Friday, he turned up with £5,000 of £5 notes. Now, in those days, you could take the money, but obviously nowadays you can't. However, I learned a very valuable lesson there, that you shouldn't judge a book by its cover.
100%.
And do you know what? He came back every year and changed his car.
Oh.
Yeah, he hardly drove it. We had to try and say to him, you don't need to do this. And he was like, no, I want to do it. I want to. But I think that's a classic example. Just because you drive around in a shed doesn't mean that you haven't got the money to do it.
No, exactly.
Yeah, and we all enjoy life. Yeah, exactly. So for me that is the success. Still enjoying things in life, but always digging in and helping out, and the people around you who are making your success needs to know that you appreciate what they do. Yeah.
Okay, I'm just briefly handing over to each of the ladies. I'm sure they've got questions. Sam, have you got any questions for Daryn? I'm sure you have. Oh, you're on mute.
It's been really fascinating, Daryn, to hear the energy and what you're talking about, what you've been doing. Thank you.
Oh, thanks, Sam.
You said you bought your first house at 18. Now that's quite unusual, albeit it was easier back in the day to buy at 18 than it is for an 18-year-old now. What was it about you that was so keen to be buying a property at that young age?
I think, without being big-headed, I was earning good money at 18. I sort of fell into the Saab world and learned very quickly that communication was a key to, and people buy from people. I think that's something key as well. People buy from people. So I thought I either blow the money on holidays, and I couldn't buy cars because obviously I was being given company cars left, right, and centre. So I remember it was literally I think I saved for about 4 months to get £1,000. And I remember going to the bank. Do you remember Portman Building Society, which was bought out by NatWest nationwide years ago? My family banked with Portman for years, and in those days you'd walk in and the manager said, Daryn, it's not a problem. I've known your family for years, so I can just approve this mortgage for you now. And that was it. That was. I was like, do you need to see pay slips? No, Daryn, I've known your mum and dad for absolutely years. It's not a problem at all. A few little things on this big VDU in our office, which probably was the size of our office, and she was like, yeah, no worries. We've sorted out the surveyor. Surveyor will be there next week. Blah 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 blah. And that was it. And from me making an offer on the property, 6 weeks later, I had my mortgage offer. And it was just the most bizarre thing ever. And I feel sorry for youngsters now trying to get on the market. However, if you really want it, you will do it. I've always said that. I think if I was buying property today and I was 18 years old, I'd still have the same energy. You know, if someone said no, I'd go and find someone else who would lend me the money, because I think once you're on the ladder, it's easier to go up the ladder. You know, and yeah, I just always wanted to buy a property, always. You know, if I could have done it at 17, I would have done it at 17. And Sarah would say that you know, it's not legal to do it at 17. But yeah, you know, I always wanted it. I would bought it at 17, no doubt about it. But literally, I had to wait. I literally was at the solicitors at 9:10 on my 18th birthday. How sad's that?
And you were talking about you were networking with the estate agents and buying them coffee at 17. How were they responding to you at that sort of tender age?
Well, to be honest with you, they weren't much older than me, to be honest, Sam. The difference being was I could probably afford to buy them a coffee. They couldn't afford to buy their own coffee. And you know, Costa didn't exist then, so it was like literally independence on the high street, which, funny enough, is what's coming back: independent coffee shops on the high street. Yeah, you know, some of them couldn't drive. You know, and I talk about, you know, not being flash, but I'd turn up in a £25,000 Saab to view a house at 18 years old. That wasn't even my car. But I suppose that sort of worked in my favour, because then people thought I had this money.
Yeah.
So Sarah's right in a way. It does work both ways. But at the time, I didn't see it as flashiness. I just saw it as a means of a car to get to where I wanted to go, etc., etc. But yeah, and I've still got some people today that I met when I was 22, 23 who are still agents, and they still pick up the phone and talk to me. And yeah, I think the estate agency world is a bizarre world. Yeah, estate agents hate each other, but they're quite happy to go down the pub on a Friday night and have a beer.
So is there any top tips to give anyone who's, you know, just starting to sort of get the courage to go and talk, you know, people new into property, who what's the top tips to be able to talk to agents and get them
I think there's still a key for an agent to talk to agents. You know, I think a lot of people just think they're going to make money by looking on Rightmove. I think Rightmove is a great source of getting into an agent, you know, looking at a couple of properties. I'd even advise someone to go and look at a couple of properties, even if they don't think it suits them, because there's still that dialogue. I know we've got COVID, but I'm praying that we don't have to live like this forever, because this is not living, this is existing, you know, and we all need to get back to normality. And I think once we do get back to normality, I believe, you know, go and look at some properties. If you don't know the agent, go and ring the agent, talk to the agent, you know, go and sit in the agent's office, go and bug them, you know, because there will be something that's, I know they say they don't have filing cabinets, but we all know they still have filing cabinets. There will be something that they will say, oh, do you know what? I've just spoke to the vendor here, and, you know, they've reduced it by 15, 20,000, or, you know, this family member's gone into a home and the family, you know, really need to deal with it. They don't want to deal with it. They live up north. There's always a scenario to a property. And you can never find that from Rightmove. Rightmove has created keyboard warriors for a good thing in one way. You know, people look at 3 o'clock in the morning at properties on Rightmove. You know, you can't do that with an agent. But what it doesn't tell you what that property is, you know, where it is. You know, you can drop the man on the street to see where it is. There's nothing better than actually standing outside a property and looking around the area. You know, dump the car and walk the area, because that's your key to knowing what the area is like.
Brilliant.
That's always worked for me. It probably doesn't sit with other people who might have been, you know, gone down the education route, but that's always worked for me. Go and jump in the car and drive around the streets, and see. I tell you where is a good source of property as well: Facebook. You know, I'm talking to someone at the moment who advertises a property on Marketplace.
All right.
Yeah, I've seen quite a few on Marketplace.
Yeah, you know, I never would have thought that you would maybe buy. I'm talking to the guy now about making an offer on something that he owns, and I said to him, why did you come on Marketplace and not use an agent? I've had an agent and I'm fed up with agents. And I'm not saying all agents are like that, because the majority of agents are very good. Don't get me wrong. I've still got an agency. So, but, you know, I was fed up with getting mucked around. People were coming, looking at blah, 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 blah. And I just thought, I just want to do it on my own, and I can vet the people who are coming to look. So I don't think there's a one-stop shop for buying property. You know, friends and family, you know, people who know people. You know, people who want to get on the market, you know, look at doing JV. You know, there's probably someone in your family who has got a bit of money tucked in the bank and not getting any interest out of it. You know, go and do that. You know, I've been fortunate. I've been able to use family money as we've progressed through this journey. You know, my mum and dad didn't have all the money in the world, but they helped me out to start with. And, you know, still now my mum invests into Propods, etc., because it's better than her money sat in the bank. So, yeah, it's a whole array of things, but I'll come back to it. If you really want to do it, go and do it, because you won't know if you can do it until you try.
Brilliant. Thanks, Daryn. Karen, how about you?
Yeah, so in Portsmouth, you're not currently banded, right? But if you are banded, I presume you would absorb the cost, because would you not struggle to charge council tax on top of the room rent?
What a bizarre thing. So I am currently lobbying the government via my MP to change the VOA attitude on what is a band A and what is not. And if there's anyone on this forum who wants to message me privately and is having the same problem, by all means, come and talk to me, because no one really knows what's going on. You are right, Karen. I've got 11 rooms so far that have been banded band A. I've been talking to Port City Council. If we have 150 rooms, we will be paying £135,000 in council tax a year over 22 properties, and that just isn't acceptable, and there's no rhyme nor reason to it. So I have taken this up with my MP, who completely agrees with me, and we are looking to lobby to change, because technically it's a policy and a guideline. It's actually a guideline. We're due to go to tribunal. That got stopped because of COVID. Funny enough, I think lockdown may have helped us argue our argument, because if they were individual dwellings, they shouldn't have had to stay in one house. We actually had a lockdown house. So if they were if they were 6 or 7 flats, technically one person should have stayed in their room and the other 6 people could have easily have gone to do what they wanted. But the government classed them as one house. So who's right? Who's wrong? So yes, I'm more than happy. I'm talking, funny enough, to our social guys at the moment to try and start creating a bit of a social page for people who've been affected by having their HMOs banded. It's wrong. To me, I think we can win the argument, but I think we need the right people and get in front of the right people, which I'm hoping can happen in the government. I want to go and meet the people in the government, because I think I can passionately explain this far better than anyone else. And we've done a lot of research on this. You know, how can you have planning for a HMO, but it's classed as flats? Because that's what they're doing.
And there's a grey area, how each council, so my area was one of the first to ban in Reading, okay? Yeah. But they're not consistent. Every council interprets it slightly different, and even within a given council, they don't operate the same policy because different people interpret it differently. So definitely keep me in the loop on that, because I'm really interested on that. And I'm aware of people who've already challenged it in the past. Some were not successful. No. I'm aware of one who was.
The one who was, but it was because they put a dry kitchen in and took the plumbing out of it. Now, the problem we got is because we're changing commercial into resi, the council automatically have to inform the VOA. Where you've got a house and it's being converted into a HMO, there seems to be a grey area that the council don't need to inform the VOA. So,
and that's even how Reading incorporate it. And this is the problem. Reading, generally speaking, do it on bathrooms. So let's say you had a 5-bedroom HMO. If you had 4 or 5 bathrooms in Reading, typically they would ban you. Not always, but typically. Theirs appears to be based on there being parity of bedrooms and bathrooms, or very near parity. And the policy needs to be clear. So there is one standard policy that everyone understands.
And I don't want to take up any more time, but the question I've always thrown out there is, if you want to band each room as band A, what happens to the kitchen and the lounge? No one can answer that question. What band? The kitchen and lounge free. Because yeah,
it's
you
crazy.
know,
Absolutely crazy.
It's great. And Karen, I am 100% behind sorting this out, because this is an absolute mess. No one wants to deal with it. There is case law about what a dwelling is and what a dwelling is not. You cannot do capital allowances on a HMO, right? But yet, because it's only classed as one dwelling, but the VOA class it as however many dwellings. Yeah. On benefit banding, there's 5 categories. The first category in benefit banding is a room with shared facilities. The second banding is a flat with a kitchen and bathroom. So even the banding on the benefit system is completely different. So we've got 4 different departments across the government, all saying completely different things to what a HMO room is, and it can't go on. It mustn't go on. And I don't care what anyone says, we are providing needed accommodation for different people up and down the country. HMOs shouldn't be looked at a bad thing. HMOs and co-living should be looked at a positive thing, because you are freeing up 1 and 2 bedroom flats for those people locally in the area who need 1 and 2 bedroom flats more than someone who lives on their own and is happy to share a facility.
No, it's interesting to hear your perspective on that. And just one other question, what's the average size of your rooms, square meters?
So average size is around about 16, 17 square meters. And that includes the 3 square meter bathroom.
Ah, okay. So basically, that's not included when they obviously measure it for amenity standards. So a reasonable size room, a reasonable size double.
Yeah, so a really good double, 14 square meters, depending on the layout of the house. It's great with a commercial because you can create that space. You know, normally a 4 meter by 4 meter room, give or take, I know that's 16 square meters. That's our normal sort of standard, or 3.5 by 5.5 or something like that. But we over egg it on the communal. So we are very much communal based. You know, we want our houses to interact. Every month we have the best kept house. Our housekeeper tells us which one, and we give them £25, £30 of Just Eat vouchers. We're very much that it's a co-living house. People, if they want to eat together, they can. If they want to have a coffee in the lounge, they can. So if the council say you need 25 square meters, we'll try and do 35 square meters, because I'm not about minimal standards. I'm actually about that's the minimal, but how do we make it better?
And make your USP stand out so they're attracted to you. No, I love all that.
I'm just doing a 9 bed and the communal area is 64 square meters.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. I've got one final question and then I'll hand back to Sarah. So I heard you say you found a bank who's prepared to fund your properties, but, and you've probably heard this happen before, when markets get tricky, sometimes these banks pull funding and then you're limited on other exits. Now, with the product you're delivering, it's great, it sounds fabulous, but if others mirror it and suddenly there's saturation in the market, what other exits do you have?
I think you've always got that worry, but I look at it that there's saturation in the buy-to-let market, and they're still cracking on. Banks, I know obviously loan to values are slightly different at the moment. I have to say, it's not something, I think it's a good point. It's not something that I'm concerned of too much at the moment, because our yield and our income massively exceeds the minimum standard of what the bank requires. And I think that's key. You know, our average, some of our houses can generate 40, 45, 50,000 pounds gross. Yes, I think if it happens, we'll deal with it. But I think at this moment in time, I can't see that problem. But an exit strategy could be that we maybe have to take a less loan to value. We have to leave some more money in it for the minute. We sell to an investor who maybe wants an end product, wants to do it, but doesn't want the hassle of going through the planning, the rigmarole of the building, etc., etc. Just wants a turnkey product. I think it's like anything, isn't it?
You've got Navy. You've got Navy Command quite nearby. It could be that you become a provider for them.
Yeah, I mean, we are starting to get those calls now. you know, we really are. Hospital is key. You know, we've got Lakeside in Portsmouth. That's key. We've got a lot of naval people, personnel, or even companies such as BAE, etc., and you know, aerospace and Airbus, and you know, we're very fortunate in Portsmouth that we've actually got a lot of industrial businesses, so to speak, in the city. You know, and also service businesses like Lakeside offices, etc. And then you've got the medical side of Portsmouth as well. So even though we're a small island, we've actually got quite a lot of diversification on the sort of people that are coming into Portsmouth and are currently in Portsmouth.
No, that's brilliant. Thank you. Let me hand back to Sarah.
Yeah.
Thanks, Darren. I think we could all chat to you for a lot longer. But we're at 10 o'clock, so I'm just going to ask you one final question. If you were new to property, but you had all your existing knowledge and experience, but you didn't have any money, where would you advise people to start? Or if you were starting out again with your existing knowledge?
With no money, I think rent to rent's a way forward. I'm not a lover of rent to rent, but I know there's a need for it, and there's a market for it. I think friends and family, you just need a little bit of a push up. Once you're on it, you're moving, and as long as you've got friends and family around you, and I don't think people talk enough. People always worry about talking about money. It's always like a nervy thing. Oh, you know, have you got any savings? Oh no, I can't talk about my savings. You know, you've only worked all your life for them. And there's some people who like to look at their savings book and appreciate that they've got those savings there that they're never going to use, but I think you'll find someone. I think with the way the interest is at the moment, interest rate's nothing.
Yeah.
You know, 100 grand in the bank, going to be 100 grand at the end of the year. The interest will be nothing.
If it goes negative, it'll be worse than nothing.
Exactly. So, you know, is there someone that you may know that may help you do a JV? You know, borrow the money for you. You know, if you've got a property that's 100,000, can someone lend you the 100,000 and they have the first charge on it, so their money is secure, and then you can just pay them, I don't know, a 4 or 5% interest, which is better than what they're getting at the moment. You know, you just need that little bit of help and push up the ladder, because once you're there, if you're good at it, it doesn't take you long to go up the ladder.
Yeah. So I think the message from you overall is determination. Keep going, keep pushing. And I agree with you. Although it's very hard for people starting out to buy a house, if you want it, you will get it.
Yeah,
whether that's a matter of being really harsh on your savings, you know, being really, really good and saving quickly, or borrowing from somebody else, or whatever it is, you'll find a way, definitely. And
I think also the key is don't be scared of buying a property and doing some work to it.
Yeah.
You know, I think this is the problem now. I think we live in an era where everyone wants to move in and they've got the shiny kitchen and the lovely bathroom and the grey carpets throughout. And well, my first house didn't have any of that. You know, so I think, again, isn't it, is how you add value to it, because if you put that effort in now and add the value in 15 years time, 10 years time, 15 years time, that added value would be worth more than what it took you those 6 months of your life to get that property to how you wanted it.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, Darren, thanks so much. It's been a really amazing interview, and you can feel your energy and your passion coming through for property, which is awesome. If people want to get hold of you, how can they do that?
They can get by me via Propods. I'm on LinkedIn as well, so either Propods or DB Brewers, or, you know, if anyone messages you, Sarah, you're more than welcome to give them out my email address. Sure. So yes, any questions, anyone's got any interest, want to invest in maybe look at Propods, or got any properties that they want to discuss about, then, you know, by all means, my email can be given out, and I'm happy to have a chat with anybody. Brilliant. Thanks, Darren. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. Thanks, ladies. And we'll see everyone at the same time next week.
Thank you.
Have a good day. Bye-bye.